Us, everyone. Hope everyone's well. Hope you all enjoyed last week's episode with Coach Rich Fogarty. This week, I've got a beauty. Love this one. Been following Coach Ian here from Townsville for a while via socials. Guys, you're in for a beautiful chat here. You know, very knowledgeable, very experienced, running a successful club up there as well. So we've got a lot to cover, a lot to share. And obviously we have that coaching angle as well that we want everyone to get some nuggets from. And what a cool opportunity we have to have a chat. Coach Ian, how are you, mate? How's it going up there in the hot Townsville sun?
I'm super good. Townsville's really nice this time of year. It's hot, makes hard training easy. You only got to step through the doors and it's hard. So it's good. Things are going great up here. People are back in the gym. We're in a nice spot up here at the moment because we're fairly regional. So when big cities have been having problems, we've kind of still gone about our business. We experienced maybe a 3-month lockdown at the beginning, but right now, you know, gym's just as full as it was this time last year, and we're getting amongst it.
Good one. You know, so for the listeners out there from my side, Coach has his, you know, does some Facebook Live stuff and interviews a lot of other angles as well. Really cool. Got to check that out. And, you know, sometimes I'm in the car listening to you there, Coach, when I just get a window with 3 kids and you've got kids and all the above. So, you know, on this side of it, if you could just share with us more so, you know, to the extent of, I always start off with how did martial arts start in your life, but you've got another side of what you've done, and thank you for your service. I'll put that bluntly quickly now, you know, for what you've done. But if you could share with us a bit of your history that, you know, you've got, and then what led you into the arts.
Well, yeah, I mean, my first career, I was in the military. So I served with the 2nd Battalion in North Queensland here. And that was actually what brought me to North Queensland. And it was just something that I was attracted to as a kid. You know, like I didn't really fit in the square box of school and then wanting to go on to university. I thought there had to be a bigger adventure out there. So I joined the military fairly young, 18, 19 years old, the reserves first. And then I put in a transfer to the regular army straight away after that. So after working in my uncle's furniture factory, which, thank you, Uncle Trevor, that was great, but what a terrible job.
How good. Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, I served in the military for 8 years, and
awesome.
It was kind of destroying my soul a little bit near the end. And one of the things that I didn't really get to do that much in the military, because they moved away from that kind of unarmed combat kind of warrior ethos stuff. When I was serving, they'd only just started to bring it back in. And on my way out, I knew I was like, I had a family, and I had, you know, like terrible young guy, bad habits, you know, like work hard, train hard all week, but then, you know, go to the pub all weekend. And then when my wife was pregnant, I was like, oh man, this is not the life for me and my family. So I started making decisions that were more in tune with my health and also living a happy lifestyle for myself rather than anyone else. So, you know, they call it service for a reason. You don't really have control over your spare time or what you're doing. You know, I think I added it up one day. For the 8 years that I served, I slept in the dirt for about 3.5 of those years. So
holy cow!
It's a long time sleeping rough. So one of the things that I really wanted to do was, like, I just had this thing where I'd really like to know how to fight properly with my my hands.
Yeah.
And I was attracted to martial arts, and it was really good for my transition because I trained for about 12 months before I got out. And then when I was out working part-time, I still got to keep a little bit of that warrior identity.
Sure.
Being an infantry soldier to being a nothing anymore. So I obviously really attracted to that kind of warrior type stuff. I think the first place I trained, they were advertised as a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu place, but they did full contact karate one day and then grappling the next day. They were kind of like just on the cusp of like learning what MMA was, and they even called it, they were still calling it things like no holds barred back then. But it was available in Australia. Like I remember reading magazines with you know, with Kyle Noak fighting still in Australia at that time, and Daniel Lima as well. I remember seeing him in magazines fighting, and he was fighting in Japan at the time. So I was just absorbing all this stuff, you know, trying to figure out like what was the real art and what was I going to be attracted to. So that was probably my first brush with Paul Cale, because my first coach did things with Paul Cales, because Paul had lived in Townsville. We've had, you know, a bunch of really good Kyokushin guys and judo guys float through Townsville over the years. So when I was looking for a coach later on, when I became a little bit self-trained for a bit, I actually approached Paul and said, I need someone to kind of like help me through this, you know, like I feel like I'm doing a lot of it by myself. I started training my own training programs, because we were kind of like, the level of fighting that I was doing was just kind of outgrowing people. And so it was really difficult. I mean, for my first coach, for example, I only really outgrew him because he wasn't capable of attending my fights. And I didn't realize until like maybe my fifth fight or something that, you know, everybody's coaches went with them.
Dang.
You know? And I was sitting in the back dressing room before my first fight with another one of my training partners. We rocked up like an hour early. Like I didn't even know how to wrap hands or any of that kind of stuff.
Interesting,
so, yeah, it is interesting. But, you know, like I think if you really want to do something and you're attracted to it, you know, like you don't know what you don't know until later on. You're just going to start kind of like figuring out as you go, you know. And I'm sure that a lot of the time, whilst Kyokushin was strong, there was still trailblazers, you know, Judd Reed going over to Japan and doing his live-in, and then time living in Thailand, you know, like he would have some similar stories, I'm sure. From his first couple of experiences.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Listen to that. So there you have it, you know, and then you've got yourself into a sweet momentum by the sounds of it. You're starting to, you know, you were getting into your fighting side of things, and that's on a, you know, as they say, semi-professional / you know, on cards and things like that. But what was it that started to make you take a bit of a, you know, oh shit, I'm separating myself here. You know, you had, you know, the pedigree of the military that would have given you that warrior mentality. But when it comes to now fighting and so on and having a young family, where was that moment, or what gave you that encouragement?
It was merely just me trying to follow a path that made me happy, you know, and it was, you know, like after spending 8 years serving in the military, you know, after every fight, I'd be like, okay, do I want to do this again? Is it making me happy? You know, like, is my job making me happy? Like, I just started to check in with myself more often, just to make sure that like I had control of my life now. Was it going to go in a good positive direction? And one of those answers for me always was, this martial arts thing is like, is so fun and so good for me personally, professionally. You know, like I was, you know, rather than be drawn to one art, I was kind of drawn to the lifestyle of it, right? Like I really enjoyed the grind. I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed the fact that like it seemed like there was no end. You know, like like there was no end to the creativity of what people were able to do, you know, like
accomplish and go, you know, expand and just keep going, right?
It was exciting too. It was an adventure at the time, you know. Like I mean, as soon as I started fighting, I think I didn't drink alcohol for about 12 months because I was like always in camp for myself. You know, which had a good feed on to my family life and everything as well, because I did have young kids the entire time while I was competing, and they were one of the reasons I was competing, you know, not an excuse.
Good one. And so, you know, you're a success as a fighter, you know, again, got to its level and got to a moment. And then where was your transition, and I'm not trying to skip all your fighting success in by any means, but where was the transition or that moment of you, opening up your magic center, or was it a moment of you going, well, shit, I've got to go through another angle here of how to build, what was the vision, or were you feeling it, or when you were fighting, were you going, fuck mate, I'm just going to continue to do this, or you would have, for your center now, from what I can see, where did that come into it?
Well, I've always given back to things that I was involved in. So when I was a young kid, I think the first team I coached was a T-ball team of like under 10s or something when I was 14. And I kept coaching baseball for quite a while. I did that for 3 or 4 years. And then when I joined the military, like, it was part of the ethos. Like, once you learn something, you teach it to the guy next to you. And it's not long until you're a group commander and a section commander, you learn something. It's part of your job to make sure everybody else around you knows what they're doing. And for a training environment, whether it be a sports team or a martial arts team, making your partners stronger, so they can catch up to your level of skill, will only make you stronger. So, I mean, just being in Townsville and being fairly regional, it was really important to build up the people around you. So I ran, before Courage Training Center, I ran a mixed martial arts and Thai boxing program out of another gym. So I helped one of my training partners at the time. I helped him open a center. He took part of the personal training side and had really big books of personal training clients, and I helped start a lot of classes. So before I opened Courage Training Center, I was actually involved in leading a program for a good 6 years, the whole time while I was fighting. And, I probably should apologize to a lot of my training partners back then, because I was so selfishly involved in fighting that a lot of those training partners and students at that point in time were tools for me to get better and more successful in the ring or the cage. And the lessons we learned through that training time was good, but we've definitely changed our methods to have more of the stuff that's successful. And like the way we train now compared to how I trained back then is almost night and day. So the big catalyst for me opening my center was realizing that until I could control the culture of the club and really start thinking more forward in the future, as well as being able to afford my own training camps without having to beg for sponsorship. There's a good one for fighters out there. Make sure you work part-time, save money, and don't have to beg for sponsorship to afford training camps. Like, part of your development is learning how to generate income to do those things. So, it kind of happened around the right time for me anyway. I started getting surgeries around that time anyway. My knees started falling apart. So as I was trying to continue fighting and being able to afford all these things, it just led to me being able to have more control over the culture and the journey of that. And because I was trying to think, okay, how could I be better? How do I make everyone else better? It had a really big culture focused from the beginning. So that was real important to me.
Yeah. How did you go with, you're skilled in many different disciplines, arts as such. And then, like you said, there were moments of where did you have different coaches supporting you in your striking, your grappling? And I'm talking now and giving that kudos around your MMA game of when that era was happening, when you were coming through. What were you doing there on one coach, two coaches, how that works? Because now that's changed, which we'll get to in the second block of our chat. But for you to share how you progressed through and how you're transitioning, today with your students.
Well, I mean, some of it was like I kind of had to mastermind the plan myself. So I worked with some local boxing coaches. My training partner that I helped set up the gym, he ended up going on and winning a world title in Thai boxing, I think against Andrew Keogh, I believe. So he was pretty good, and we had good access to other trainers around the country. So when I would travel somewhere, you know, I'd pay for someone to hold pads for me and figure it out. I spent about 6 weeks in Thailand.
Cool.
Once trying to sort things out. Another 10 days in Bangkok another time. So definitely traveling and absorbing things. And if I learned something, I would take it back. And even if it was something ever so tiny, we would train that. You know, like I'd put that into my classes, and we would just train it nonstop. So I was forced to be fairly open-minded about that type of stuff. But you know, later on, when I was just as I was like, okay, it's about time I left and opened up my own place. I actually had been doing some charity work with Paul Cale, raising money for veterans and running some veterans programs.
Awesome.
And I was like, Paul, we should do some martial arts together. You know, like it's just crazy that we're not. I need someone to kind of like mentor me through some of these arts. You know, like I'd fought boxing, Thai boxing. I'd done just a handful of jiu-jitsu tournaments, and I had like a huge amount of MMA experience compared to what was around. I think the first year I fought 7 times, you know, like, and my advice to most young guys now would be like, in between those fights, you should be taking boxing and Thai boxing. But I young guy, I just had the blinkers on. I was like, okay, I'm my body's good. I lost one. I need to go fix this up. I need to go win some more.
Sure.
You know, and I just get back on the grinder. So it can get exciting and blinding like that, especially when you don't have someone kind of shining the way for you a little bit. So Paul helped with that. So
cool.
He kind of like put a couple of challenges in front of me too. He wanted me to do Kudo, which is a really extreme form of karate in Japan, which more or less, Jugacho was a offshoot of Masayama. So and they wanted to do everything. So, you know, like it involves punches, kicks, knees, elbows, headbutts. They wear this face mask thing so nobody bleeds, but you definitely get concussed.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah, no, we're very familiar with it. No doubt. But yeah, and in segue of that, let's just, again, I'm not here to try and skip too much of what you've achieved and accomplished, but there's a couple of things I'd like to. So yeah, the Kudo side has supported it, and you know, Paul Cale is in your corner in a way, and then there's a multiple of flavors of what you've accomplished, and one of them is you got a showdown in Kudo. Is that correct?
Yes. So after we started Kudo, I just started traveling with Paul. I think the first guy he asked me to fight was a Japanese national champion down in Canberra. So we gave him a red hot go, and I think he beat me with 1 point, which I was a little bit disappointed about. But then I think he walked into an armbar from Jimmy Crute. You know, like the match after that. So the Japanese guys were probably thinking, what's going on here? That was good fun. And then he had me go to Russia, and we fought in an open weight tournament in Russia, which was a little bit frightening. And then we went back to Japan and did some summer camps there once or twice. And then we did I did the World Championships. So I was lucky enough to win enough fights at the World Championships to grade to Shodan. So generally you rock up. They don't do gradings in their own clubs. They always all come together. And grade. So you can't just fight people at your own club. You end up having like a bunch of little fights either at a summer camp and grading with other clubs, which stops people from like splintering off and having their own version of the art, which I think is quite clever.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's very clever. And then or you can grade at a tournament. So if you win more than you lose at a tournament, you can grade at a tournament as well, which again is clever as well. Kind of I suppose you took that from judo maybe.
Oh, yeah. So one of the special moments that I saw and fortunate for you and your team to put up was your, and congratulations, your black belt in jiu-jitsu. What an accomplishment. That was, that tickled the heartstrings a little, did it?
Yeah, it did. I think it's a big grind at jiu-jitsu black belt. Like, it's a very frustrating sport. It's very technical, and it's very real in its application. Like, I mean, you could it's like pads. You could look amazing on the pads. You could look amazing drilling jiu-jitsu, but actually putting it together with resisting opponents is something completely different again. And there's very high expectations, I suppose, on quality control. I'm not sure how long the world will be able to maintain that level of integrity with the more people doing it. But I think there's so many frustrating points along the journey that it can definitely be an emotional kind of thing. Jiu-jitsu, for me, out of all the arts, changed the way I think about martial arts, because I really love the applications of martial arts to other areas of life. Like, it's undeniable what it did for my life, but the learning of skills in jiu-jitsu, I find the philosophy to that and that grind really easily applicable to other areas of your life. You know, just the pressure, the constant testing things, and so the constant validation of, like, you have to fail a million times, you got to try this thing a million times before it actually works. And it's very obvious inside jiu-jitsu. So the other arts, it's with the less contact, I think the more athleticism can play into it.
I gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah, so you accomplished these fantastic achievements whilst running your center, and then now this second block is, we were in a similar boat. I felt, and that's why I liked following you to an extent, was you competed, and now it's time to give back and get your own students and turn them into fighters, and then it spreads off into the different hats that I like to put it. So, you've got different discipline, skills and experience, and then you've got different people wanting all of it, some of it, a bit of that. That's shit, and give me a bit of this. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Fuck, you think I just got all this shit, in the Willy Wonka bar? No, this takes a lot of time. So I'm trying to tap into now your avenue of how, you've got all that experience, like, even like when I hopefully get to talk to Jean-Paul Kale, how are you managing these different hats in those moments? I guess you've all got it set up nicely with your center, but give us all a bit of a kick in the ass. And for those listening to go, listen, hold on a second, where do you see with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. There is a lot of hats, but there's a process to it. So there's a massive belief system, like, that people, like, people want to fight MMA, and someone will come along and they'll tell them, oh man, you should get really good at striking first before you learn grappling, or man, you got to be a specialist in this before you do that. And everybody wants to tell you, like, the amazing right way to do it, but I honestly believe the right way to do it is just to dive in, do a little bit of everything wherever it fits in your life, and just be open to all those experiences, and try and drown out the noise of people telling you the perfect way to do things. Because, I mean, if for anybody that wants to do mixed martial arts out there, that like, maybe they're a great Kyokushin fighter and they're like, I just didn't start jiu-jitsu early enough, and they keep putting it off doing it. It's silly. Just go do some now. You'll fit it in, and your body will adjust, and you'll be able to pick those things up. So for me, structure is important. So we have more of a structured base curriculum where we kind of aim on skills from different positions. We do the same for our striking. We really structure it all the way from the kids through to the adults, where it's extremely skills focused. So I tend to lay out combinations in strategical patterns, and we'll do a fight worth of those every class. But then we really focus on defensive and counter skills, and then sparring like games all week. So we use sparring like games all week, so we only have to have like real competition level sparring once on the weekends, and we really try and push people to spar for skills and fight for intensity. So we just had Max Holloway, and a couple of other fighters like Cowboy Cerrone talk about they're not sparring anymore.
Yes.
Because there's only so much damage your body can take, and it takes a long time to get good at martial arts. It takes a long time to be conditioned and resilient. All those Kyokushin guys that managed to kick into each other's legs and punch into each other so well, that didn't happen the very first night they walked in. They didn't come in the first night and have Patrick laying on their legs until they fell over.
Yeah.
That's not how you build that. That's not how you build strong. So
that's right.
That also opens up for more people to come. And instead of people thinking that's a soft way to train, what it actually does is a lot. Eventually you make people tough, because there's no really soft way to do martial arts if you're actually making contact.
Yeah.
There's no real soft way to do it, but you can definitely do it smarter.
Yeah, and you're segueing nicely from the experience of what you've had, and that's why I'm doing this and chatting to someone like yourself who's experienced X in that era, or whatever you want to title it, to now. You've got this responsibility and ownership, and that's why I can't wait to talk to more people about it. But thanks for sharing that, because it is cool to tap into someone else's view on it as well. And how do you see I guess we've all got mentors and we've all got someone above us in Kohai that supports us in some way. But how, I see you on a level of initiative and also testing boundaries and you do some really cool posts in regards to, and I'm sharing all this stuff because of that angle of leadership and coaching and how you're sharing it to the community and to everyone else there. Is this something that, you're extremely passionate about, obviously, but on what angle? How are you seeing it around the world, and how do you embrace it?
Well, I think that there's a couple of reasons I take that angle. I truly believe that, like, if someone was to come into your gym who was super athletic and they had all the appearance of being talented, but they lack the values and attitude to be a champion, then that'll just wither away. And we see that withering away. It either withers away, or they never reach the full level of what I would consider their potential to be. They're jumping coaches and they don't know what's up. They're making complaints about technicality and all these other things, where there's one thing that rings true about, like, most champions, is their attitude and values towards training are second to none. So you give me a kid that's like frightened or whatever, but has supportive parents and has a great attitude and ability to learn, and he might come to me like soft, but just like keen to have a go. If they got a good attitude, that kid could be a champion in 5 years. No worries whatsoever. So I try and early on, like, not just for kids, but for adults, try and push like the attitudes and thought processes that will get people through that moment of suffering. And look, if you hit the mark with a few people and not so many people, it doesn't matter whether they become a champion or not. Maybe you made their life better because they were able to think better. So I feel like if you train consistently and are open-minded and have mentors and open yourself up to other coaches, the technique side will take care of itself. In the age of YouTube and instructionals and all these wonderful things, you could never have a high-level coach, and you could just be buying DVDs from them all these days, or like downloads. I suppose we can't even call them DVDs anymore. They don't exist. But the information for that red hot technique is all over Instagram, but it doesn't matter. None of that matters if you're weak on values and attitude. So I'm happy to let talented athletic people go if they're not pulling the chain for the team or flying the flag, so to speak.
Yeah, and a good point regarding that, because we are now in a phase, and whether it's whatever capacity we're talking about here, we have success in combat around Australia in all disciplines, right? So that's what I'm trying to cover here. And what I'm getting at is how we are now seeing there's no bullshitting it now. It's right in our face. We can get it on 2 channels on Fox. We can get it on live stream, download. It's right there. And we're seeing successful Australians having a crack in previous, events and so on. And now we've got this nice little cycle of, we've got some cool coaches that are starting to progress, or not progress, but are starting to be, very, very valuable towards the next generation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially like building relationships with other coaches like yourself. And I have a few relationships with people that own clubs, so it's great to have people that I can go to with problems. But your club down the road, apart from being competition, those guys are more like you. They should be your friends opposed to your enemies.
Yeah.
Like they're more like you, and we have competitions to compete at each other where you can flex your ego and your muscles at anyway. Like, I mean, that's the way I kind of see it. I'm like, well, if I want to flex my ego or my team's ego and pressure test things, I tell the guys all the time, I really encourage people towards competition because it lets me know whether I'm doing a good job or not. Cool. It's not because I want you guys to make me look good. Yeah, I want to go. Right. And if you all start losing by the same thing, or we have things that are a problem, I can now go back and fix it. If I don't encourage people to compete, I don't have a large enough data source to tell whether I'm doing a good job or not.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're only putting your athletic or good guys forward. Yeah. So you're not getting a good data feedback, because that guy that came to you that was athletic and strong probably would have been successful no matter where he trained. So you have to build everyone up to have confidence and belief in themselves to give it a go. And it might, you'll see a lot of people surprise themselves. They'll rock up to a competition. They're like, oh, I didn't think I'd like that. And some of them compete better than they train.
Yeah. I say the same thing.
Whereas I actually felt I had trouble. I felt like I trained better than I competed. And every time I competed, I would take a little bit more of what I could do in the gym to the competition thing. I just wish I'd started 10, 20 years earlier, like most people that started as young adults. We kind of like, oh man, if I started this at 15. Now I have kids that have started with me since they were 9. Starting to get into that stage where we're letting them do Muay Thai and boxing competitions and stuff. So it's kind of interesting watching those next guys come through too. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a very nice way of putting it, because that's exactly that next side of what keeps you busy and keeps coaches on their toes, right? The next generation, and that's another side of sharing it with you. You've got a nice spread of kids, teens, adults, and seniors, and just by seeing your footage, and most of us that might be listening here have got that, but there's always someone that doesn't need to be, hey man, I'm not here to fight. I'm just using it for my health and well-being, man. And we also have to cater for that.
Yeah, I'm so cool with people picking their own level of engagement for that type of thing too, because when someone asks me to fight, I'm like, hey, well, okay, you've changed the rules for yourself now.
Yeah, you've opened up.
You've changed the rules for yourself now. So we have kind of standards where if people are fighting, they have to rock up a little bit earlier and
of course
and get their runs in and things like that. Like, it just changes the relationship a tiny little bit. And I think it's kind of fun watching people pick their own level of engagement, because some people can train 3 days a week and they get really good, and they're really good guys to have around the gym. Really,
yes.
We've got doctors, paramedics, shift workers, tradies, all these kinds of different people, students that train with us. And in most other places, you wouldn't get to sit in a room like that and have a real level conversation with it. You've got a doctor and a massage therapist talking to each other like equals, or maybe the massage therapist is like a brown belt in jiu-jitsu and the doctor's only a blue belt, so he's helping him out with other stuff. So it breaks down a whole bunch of really fun barriers for people as well. So I love that. I definitely understand people have different motivations to training, but I think everybody should be encouraged the same. So even that guy that does 3 jiu-jitsu classes a week, if he wants to try and compete off the back of that and do a little bit of running in his own time, he should be allowed to. the only time we really draw the line is for concussive combat sports. So
what are you saying, again, and it's not, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth across everyone else out there, but what are you saying that the generation, let's say 2020 or the last 5 years or so, in regards to just combat martial arts, is one of the key things, and you kind of gestured it, but I'm just seeing where you might head with this, that's important and that we as coaches should be putting at the forefront? What do you feel? And I'm testing you a bit on the spot. What comes to mind when I say what's the key thing that you're putting out there to the message of martial arts and combat as a coach?
Look, I'm drawn to authenticity.
Yeah, okay.
You know, like everything that I do surrounds about being real and being usable. So it's interesting. You have to kind of live your own authenticity as a coach, and other people are going to have different things for them. I'm, besides really being attached to combat sports, the reason I'm really into martial arts is I want the final solution. And they used to talk about Kyokushin being the ultimate truth, and I really like that word, and I would love for all these clubs to find their own ultimate truth and just be like super real. And if you are one of those clubs that does no contact, just don't call yourself a no contact self-defense club. I have certain values that I like to push on people. And when people come see me for things like self-defense, because people always think martial arts, self-defense, fighting makes sense. Someone sees me about self-defense, I'm like, okay, all right, well, how much are you willing to commit to it? How much does your safety mean to you, and how long are you willing to put into it? Because I personally think a year of training every day, you can probably self-defense will be okay. But if you're going to train every second day, it might take you 3 years to feel confident in self-defense. If you can't feel confident sparring someone with head punches and body kicks and knees and clinching and things like that, how can you feel confident if someone was actually going to attack you? So I'm really keen for everybody to just be authentic and just teach whatever they teach. And I love all different arts. I think they can all be valuable for different reasons. But if you want it to work for you and you want a really good, solid reputation, then you need to be authentic, not just for you, but for your particular students. Because if they find out one day by going somewhere else that they've had their mind blown, they're like, 15 years learning this, and now I've seen how useful this is.
Well, and I laugh cheekily then and facetiously because, and I can vouch, and those that are listening via the Kyokushin here that do it, have dabbled 10, 15, 20 years in Kyokushin, and there's a whole handful of lads that have now gone, I'm off to go. I'm loving BJJ now. And then there's a mixture of BJJ lads going, I've never been punched in the, I've never been XYZ stood up or been.
Yes, it's both sides of the coin.
Yeah. And it's language. I call it language. I've had some lads come in here and love the conditioning sets that we do. And it adds another, but again, it's the language of the coach. My language towards someone getting conditioned is, do you know what we're doing first? Why you want to do it? Because you've seen someone else do it. And it's like, I just want to feel it. And it's like, okay, that's cool. And then same with when I did some BJJ training with Coach Travers.
My body just ached in pain. When you talk about feeling your body conditioning, I'm like, okay, I just ached in pain thinking about it.
And then, and for us lads, in a stand-up discipline, I share it to my students. Have you ever been choked? Have you ever been grabbed in an armbar, or in a manner where you haven't felt that? And in 10, 15 years or so, some of the showdowns that I've got here, fortunately, and I do the certain training, but you have to remind them and go, hey, this shit. Don't think you're going to go meet potentially someone that knows exactly what you do in Kyokushin. There's someone that's going to go, the hell with this. I'm going to straight line. So what I'm setting up here is how, everyone has a view on it until you get a moment of realization, which is the humble pie, as they call it.
Yeah. And cross training is just so good for opening up these things. Like I really recommend everybody that's been bitten by the martial arts bug to cross train. And you don't have to commit to one style or one coach. You can be loyal and honorable in all those relationships, because I actually think that's probably like one of the secret juice that we don't talk about enough either. You know, like Paul and I have a really, really strong relationship where we can talk honestly to each other, which is why I was able to have all my jiu-jitsu belts given to me by him, plus others, and him expose me to other arts and things and allow me to grade and delve in them. And then he also to be humble enough for him to say, hey, you know, I want you to be part of the Jean-Jacques group and hand over like part of my jiu-jitsu journey to other coaches in there as well. Because I mean, if Jean-Jacques tells you something that you know, like now we both answer to him for a period of time, you know. So it's interesting. I definitely think having a good relationship with your coach from the beginning is important. And it's a two-way street, you know, like you can't lay all the expectations on your coach to provide you with all the answers and everything. But at the same time, if they lay some challenges in front of you, you got to eat those things. You got to eat those things up.
Yeah,
you know?
I use the word ownership, and I'm sure you're familiar with Jocko Willink and ownership. You got to take ownership as well, and you've got to also, you know, we are so fortunate, right? Like lads in our generation compared to Xian Paul, my Xian, and so on back in the day. And I always share the concept of when we went to Japan in 2004, and even when I came through, a VHS was what we were watching, you know, the world tournaments on, and you know the content and so on was so difficult to go with, but the honor and the loyalty, you know, I've been under my Xian for 20 years, but always allowed and always encouraged, you know, go here, try this, try that, you know, and I guess in Townsville, on that note is, you know, like you said, it's not a regional city, but it's got that, you're right, go for it. Yeah, it's got that, what's the population of Townsville, Coach?
We're 150 to 200,000 somewhere. I'm just going to plug in my phone.
You're right. Yeah. No, you're cool. You're cool. Keep going. We're having fun.
Yeah. So it really is. It's a small town. We've got everything that we need. But I think regardless of where you are now, if you were thinking really, really hard about what it is that you wanted to train, why you wanted to train, the answers are on Google. I know. And I don't want to hand over to Dr. Google too much.
I get you, though,
but we shouldn't be arguing about what martial arts are effective anymore. A whole bunch of them are for a bunch of different reasons. And you can fix any gaps with kind of cross-training.
Yeah. No, that's it. What's an angle because of again that you're heading with your fighters or this I guess year or what's been occurring? Is there a specific thing that you're focusing on? And I say thing meaning more cross training, more strength and conditioning, more fights. Where are you playing in your puzzle this year, Coach?
Well, we're definitely mixed martial arts, Jim. But I have this undying theory that, you know, like we should be really good at the parts. If you're not good at the individual parts and you don't have specialists inside your organization, you're going to be missing out on those things. So we have a decent amount of people who are just interested in doing sports jiu-jitsu. So, you know, we delve deep into leg locks and berimbolos and all those fancy things, which people will arguably say, you know, maybe, oh, that's not really good for MMA. But at the same time, the awareness and skill you build with those things makes it useful to have everybody exposed to it. You know, so people get to choose the amount of time really that they're going to spend delving into those things when they open spar or when we do hold training at the end. So I really think, you know, like we want to have great sports jiu-jitsu guys. we've already made our first Thai boxing champion. We want to have more guys fighting Thai boxing. You know, like if somebody was to come up and put on a full contact karate tournament in Townsville, we would compete in it. You know, like you know, like I really do think that those sports just open up an opportunity to get good at a particular area of skills. So I'm really blown away by the level of how MMA has improved compared to when I was fighting to now. And so it should, you know, like we should, you know, like if you've got a growth mindset, you should be pushing the envelope on that as much as you can. So I don't like to kind of like focus too much on one area, and I have enough peers now in my club that I've got guys that are probably better at Thai boxing than I was. I've got guys that are probably better at jiu-jitsu when I was. I don't have too many hang-ups. I'm feeling obsolete by that. I think a lot of coaches feel obsolete by that, but you know, like I more get like a sense of pride over that. Yeah. I just hope that they hang out for as long as I can, and I hope I can keep helping them.
Yeah, no, I feel you, and this is why I love what I'm doing this year and chatting to coaches like yourself. Is hearing that from you as well gives me a bit of reassurance. Seeing my heavyweights kick the shit out of me, and but I'm still, you know, I want to crack on and enjoy it, but then also give them. And I told them in a similar way, you know, if you're not finishing me, and if I'm still here, well, shit, we got problems, because, you know, I shouldn't still be here. You know, I shouldn't be in, you know, continually. You should be progressing past me in some way.
Yeah. And you just can't, you know, like forever, you can't be the body that they lay. Oh, it's not kill the master. And then now he's useless to you, because now you're going to have to be everything that guy was: the support network, the attitude readjustments, and all those type of things that helped you get where you were. Yeah.
You're good. You're good still on. And a couple more minutes just to finish off, and I appreciate your time. It's been an awesome chat, finally, to, you know, tap into, you know, how you go about it. What's your angle and in who you you know, are you an enthusiast in other coaches or in other, again, like I've said, you know, we know who our mentors in a way, martial arts blossom, but how else do you feed off other things, other mentors in this area?
I try and travel before COVID.
Yeah.
You know, once every 6 to 8 weeks, I'll go travel, and I would train somewhere and just be a student again. I find I have a bunch of people in Australia that I've traveled with just to kind of like feel their energy, because it was different to mine. So I've used coaches. I go see another really great MMA coach of mine, Dan Higgins. He's a grappling phenom, and actually has a Shotokan karate background.
Wicked.
It's just, he does things that are insane.
That's
and he's really good at putting the really simple adjustments on it. I'm really grateful to be involved with the Jean-Jacques Machado group. That guy has a mat presence and a character of gentleness and kindness that's second to none. And it's on the mat that's important, you know, like it's really important to see what they do on the mat, how they behave, how they deal with questions from students.
Yeah, right.
Know, like sometimes I've like had kids ask Jean-Jacques a question. I'm like thinking to myself, oh, this kid. And Jean-Jacques is like, next thing you know, he's jumping down on the ground, doing an arm bar with this kid, being so patient and giving them the simplest answer.
How good,
it's just, like it's amazing how some of them do that. And sometimes I'll agree. Sometimes I'm the grumpy coach. Like I'm like, hey man, I just showed you that 3 times. How about you just give it a red hot go for me and let me fix it on the fly? Because we're not doing a private lesson right now unless you want to pay me in 50 push-ups. So I kind of like to feed off people that are a little bit different to me sometimes, because I feel like we can be attracted to people that are the same all the time. And definitely know Paul has probably a really nice sense of charisma
Yeah.
as well. Completely different approach to me as well, but we do share
Yes.
some of those tough guy values
Yep.
as well. So,
Yeah.
you know,
It's cool, man.
they're all real helpful. I've had other coaches that I've done training camps before with. Roy Luxton down at Five Rings helped me win a belt. I spent 2 weeks with him. He's got a different view on mixed martial arts. Again, cool guy. And I did the same thing with another coach called Vince Perry. He's a little bit of he's got a really nice laid back hippie kind of style.
Cool.
So
Interesting,
I think it's
man.
really important to get around to those people.
Yeah.
I love Darren Jordan. The small amount of time we've done with him through Kudo, he's my type of people.
Yeah, right
No
on.
nonsense, straight shooter. I love that guy. He's good.
Oh, that's cool, man. Hey, thanks for that, man. That's really cool. It's exactly, again, I've shared it a couple of times now, but it's exactly why I'm doing this, man. So we can all, it's like, the community of helping each other. So much good people, so much experience. And fortunate for you to just share, 50 odd to an hour of it. So I appreciate your time, Coach. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the chat, Patrick. And I hope the club's going strong there. Now you guys have been let out of lockdown, and I hope it keeps going upwards and onwards. And I really respect everything that you guys do. And I do love the Kyokushin community. I think there's some of the toughest kickboxers around end up having like a background where they grew up doing Kyokushin. So I have a huge amount of respect for you guys.
Of course. Thanks, mate. Everyone, thanks, Coach. Fantastic. I hope you all got something out of that. I'm sure you did. And have a great week, everyone. Appreciate it. Big us, everyone. Take care.